The Zodiac Killer, a name that has haunted California since the late 1960s. His identity remains one of the most infamous unsolved mysteries in criminal history, and his chilling actions left a trail of blood, fear, and cryptic messages that still captivate the world. Today we dive deeper into the chilling timeline of the Zodiac Killer's crimes, his bizarre letters, the failed investigations, and the lasting legacy of his terrifying figure. What makes the Zodiac one of the most notorious serial killers? Let's break it all down. While the Zodiac's first confirmed victims won't come until 5 years later, some believe his killing spree started in 1963. On June 4th, Robert Domingos and his fiancée Linda Edwards were shot to death on a secluded beach in Gaviota State Park near Santa Barbara. Although the Zodiac was never definitely linked to this crime, later analysis of the killer's signature style, the weapon used, and his preferred method of attack raised suspicions that he may have been responsible. Then in 1966, 18-year-old Sherry Jo Bates was murdered in Riverside, California. She had been viciously attacked, stabbed, and her throat slashed. At first, the crime seemed unrelated to any serial killer, but in 1969, a letter arrived at the Riverside Press Enterprise, postmarked from the killer himself. The Zodiac taunted police with details about the crime only the murderer could have known, though the police didn't know it yet. This was the first letter from the man who would be known as the Zodiac Killer. The Zodiac's confirmed reign of terror began on December 20th, 1968. Betty Lou Jensen, 16, and David Faraday, 17, were sitting in their car on Lake Herman Road near Bianca, California, where the Zodiac approached them. The couple was shot at point-blank range, and though police initially believed that it was a random crime, they soon realized the method of killing matched the pattern of later murders. This was only the beginning. On July 4, 1969, Darlene Fern and Michael Magoo were attacked while parked in a car at Blue Rock Springs Park in Vallejo, California. The Zodiac approached them in his car and shot them at point-blank range. Darlene died at the scene, but Michael survived and provided a description of the killer. Just minutes after the shooting, the Zodiac called the Vallejo Police Department and claimed responsibility for the crime, all while boasting about the authorities' inability to catch him. He even mailed a letter to the local newspaper, which included a cryptic cipher. The Zodiac's next attack occurred at Lake Berryessa. On September 27, 1969, Brian Hartnell and Celicia Shepard were relaxing by the lake when a man wearing an executioner-styled hood and a symbol resembling a cross circle approached them. The Zodiac then tied up his victims, stabbed them repeatedly, and left a message on Brian's door. The symbol on the door was similar to the one seen in the letters he's been sending. The killer then returned to his car and mailed a new letter to the local newspaper, which included more details and bragged about the attack. The final confirmed Zodiac killing took place on October 11, 1969. Paul Stein, a 28-year-old cab driver, was shot dead in the Presidio Heights neighborhood of San Francisco. The killer once again left behind a letter taunting police and boasting about his crime. The Zodiac even described the crime in a phone call to a police dispatch shortly after. This was the last known murder attributed to the Zodiac, but it would not be the last time he made headlines. The Zodiac Killer wasn't just interested in killing. He was obsessed with toying with the media and law enforcement. Over the years, he sent dozens of letters, most containing ciphers, cryptic messages, and threats. Some of these ciphers contained disturbing messages, such as the Zodiac's declaration of his desires to create a quote-unquote slave army of victims. The infamous 340-character cipher remains one of the most well-known, though it was only partially deciphered in 2020. The Zodiac made sure to send cryptic clues and even threats of future murders, causing the public and police to grow more fearful with each passing letter. In 1970, the Zodiac may have been involved in the kidnapping of a young woman named Kathleen Jones. She was allegedly abducted by a man claimed to be a police officer and driven around for hours before escaping. While the Zodiac was never confirmed as the abductor, the incident has been linked to him due to similarities in his behavior and his taunting ways. Another mystery that looms large in the Zodiac case is the disappearance of 25-year-old nurse Donna Lass on September 6, 1970. She was last seen leaving her job in South Lake Tahoe, and her body was never found. Shortly after her disappearance, a postcard was sent to a San Francisco newspaper that alluded to her death, and many suspect the Zodiac was behind it. In 1974, the Zodiac sent what would become his final known letter. After this, he essentially vanished from the public eye. Some believe the killer moved away, others speculate he may have stopped killing, but some theorize he may have been caught, but his crimes were never officially tied to him. As the years passed, the Zodiac faded from the headlines, though his legacy lived on in unsolved mysteries. Though the case went cold for decades, modern forensic technology has reignited efforts to crack the Zodiac case wide open. DNA analysis, new cipher-solving techniques, and fresh perspectives have led investigators to re-examine old evidence. In 2020, a breakthrough in the 340-character cipher was made. While it didn't reveal the Zodiac's identity, it offered hope that one day we might finally learn who this killer really was. The Zodiac killer's influence extends far beyond crime and investigations. His story has inspired countless books, documentaries, and movies. The 2007 film Zodiac, directed by David Fincher, brought the case back into the public eye and helped introduce a new generation to the chilling saga of the Zodiac. But the question remains, who was he, and will we ever find out? Over the decades, dozens of suspects have been proposed, but none have been conclusively proven to be the Zodiac. Some of the most notable suspects include Arthur Leigh Allen, perhaps the most famous suspect. Allen was a convicted child molester who had a history of bizarre behavior. He was never charged with the Zodiac murders, though numerous investigations and a 2007 film raised significant questions about his possible involvement. Still, DNA evidence, which modern forensic techniques would have utilized, failed to conclusively link him to the crimes. Richard Gajowski, a former journalist and editor for the local newspaper, Gajowski's name came up after investigators discovered possible connections between his handwriting and the Zodiac letters. However, like many other suspects, there was no concrete evidence to charge him. Gary Francis Post, in 2021, a new theory emerged after a group of cold case investigators claimed that Gary Post, a deceased convicted murderer, could be the Zodiac killer. They pointed to his criminal history, alleged cryptic writings, and supposed similarities in his physical appearance. However, these claims have been met with skepticism, as law enforcement has not officially confirmed this theory. Many believe the Zodiac was a local man who knew the area well and was comfortable evading law enforcement. Others think he could have been a loner with a history of mental illness, using his letters to gain fame and attention. A few theorists even believe that the Zodiac could have been a group of individuals collaborating to commit the murders, though this is widely dismissed by law enforcement. Despite its numerous leads, the Zodiac killer's identity continues to elude investigators, and the case remains one of the most baffling in criminal history. The Zodiac ciphers were some of the most perplexing parts of the case. His obsession with puzzles and hidden messages gave rise to a public frenzy. Cryptography experts, journalists, and amateur sleuths trying to decode them. In 1969, the Zodiac mailed the infamous 408-character cipher. After nearly a month of intense scrutiny, two teachers from San Francisco, Donald and Betty Hardin, cracked the code, revealing a chilling message in which the Zodiac described his desire to kill people for pleasure and spoke about his quote-unquote slave army. But the Zodiac did not stop there. In 1970, he sent the 340-character cipher, which remained unsolved for nearly 50 years until 2020. Thanks to advancements in technology, a team of cryptographers successfully cracked the cipher, revealing a taunting message. Though still no clue to the Zodiac's identity, he continued to use the code suggested. His continued use of code suggests that he might have wanted the world to try and understand him, but the answers have always been just out of reach. Despite widespread media attention and massive investigation by the Valley Home Police Department, the Napa County Sheriff's Department, and the San Francisco Police Department, the Zodiac killer's case remained unsolved. One of the main reasons for this failure to catch him was the killer's ability to cover his tracks. The Zodiac was methodical, often using untraceable vehicles, changing his appearance, and leaving behind few physical clues. Additionally, the police departments involved in the investigation had limited resources and struggled to coordinate with each other in the early years. They also faced mounting pressure from the public and the media, creating a perfect storm of confusion, missteps, and dead ends. At one point, the killer even sent a bomb threat to a school, showing his increasing audacity and ability to stay one step ahead of the police. With no reliable witness testimony and the Zodiac's unyielding pursuit of media attention, authorities were always playing catch-up. In 1974, the Zodiac killer sent his last known letter, marking the end of the disturbing chapter in criminal history. Over the years, the letters slowed down and the murders stopped altogether. What happened to the Zodiac? Did he simply lose interest in killing? Or was he caught by authorities and his identity never linked to the crimes? Some theories suggest that the Zodiac was either imprisoned for another crime or simply stopped committing. Others believed he may have died during the 1970s or 1980s, leaving a trail of confusion in his wake. The mystery of the Zodiac killer has left a mark on popular culture. His cryptic letters and eerie ciphers and his uncanny ability to taunt law enforcement has made him a figure of fascination for decades. From books like The Zodiac by Robert Gray Smith to documentaries and even the 2007 film Zodiac, directed by David Fincher, his legacy is alive and well. The case also inspired a new wave of amateur detectives, conspiracy theorists, and even potential copycat killers. The Zodiac killer's obsession with media attention set the precedent for how modern criminals might manipulate the press to stay in the public eye. Today, the Zodiac's name is synonymous with mystery, fear, and a warning about the darkness that can sometimes lie behind the killer's mind. The search for the Zodiac killer may never have a satisfying conclusion. As technology advances and new theories emerge, there's always the possibility that the truth will come to light, perhaps even in our lifetime. Until then, the Zodiac killer remains a haunting figure of mystery and fear. His cryptic messages and unsolved crimes continue to captivate and terrify. Do you think the Zodiac killer will ever be identified? Let me know and your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into one of our history's most chilling criminal cases, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.